And he goes, oh my God. So he's like, well, you know what? She paid her fee. Let's see how this works. So everybody lines up. There's 10 people. Line up with your horse. We have one of the first techniques to develop trust with a horse is to be able to get them to understand what neutral is. They just stand there. You don't need to do anything, just stand there, no matter what I do. And one of the techniques we do is we just have random body motion. But one of them is to get the rope over the horse's head in a loop. Just loop it over. Don't hit the horse's head. Don't frighten the horse, or whatever. Parelli people do it pretty fast. You have to get this pretty fast because you have to develop the trust. So Pat's explaining this, and the other 9 people are doing it. Linda's not. The woman is not. Gave it away. Pat walks down to the end. He says, is there a problem? Didn't you understand the instructions? She goes, well, my horse is pretty high-spirited, and I think this is not a good idea. And Pat goes, well, it might not be a good idea, but until you get that horse's trust, your relationship is never going to blossom. And she takes a nice deep breath, and she goes, well, I'll try. She got her hand up to 2 o'clock, and the horse drug her across the arena. She wouldn't let go of the rope, drug her across the arena. Everybody goes and they get her and they prop her up and they brush her off. And Pat goes, listen, this is not going to work out. This is just not going to work out. And she goes, no, I need to learn this. This is important. She saw a VHS tape playing at her tack store of Pat doing a bareback and bridleless demonstration. And it wasn't until about 2 minutes in that she realized he was doing all of these fine moves that a dressage horse would do with no bridle, no reins, no bit, no nothing. All relationship. That's why she went there. And she says, no, I'm going to do this. She says, you just hold on to my horse a minute, I'll be right back. And she went and she got her crash helmet. At the end of the day, she was riding bareback and bridleless, and that horse was dangerous. There's no doubt about it. All go, no woe. Just go, a go-aholic. At the end of that, she goes, well, this is amazing, I need to know more. And Pat goes, well, there's not much more to know. And she goes, well, when are you coming back to Australia? And he goes, well, I'm not coming back. He said, this is a one-time deal. He said, I'm not coming back. And she goes, no, you have to come back. And so they made a deal. She was going to be the salesperson of Parelli Natural Horsemanship in Australia. Why she signed on for this, I have no idea. But I do have a remnant. At the end of that day, Linda wanted to videotape an interview with Pat. And we have it. We've never shown it. But you could see that Pat is absolutely in love with Linda. The energy between the two is amazing. Linda's trying to be serious, and Pat is just, oh my God. So when I'm in Pagosa, I talk to Linda and I talk to Pat, and I say to them, how can I help you with this? Give me the access to information. I spend 2 days, I come back and I say, okay, I understand what you have. You said you had a business. You actually don't. You have a hobby. He goes, no, people pay me to do this. I said, that's not the definition of a business. Not to me. The definition of a business to me is something that generates enough capital to sustain the business. A hobby is something in which you have to put capital in all the time. You have a hobby. Oh my God. And he says, not only do you have a hobby, and not only have you lost money, but the ranch you bought is a dump. And he goes, well, yeah, but I have a vision. And I said, well, you may have a vision, but it's still a dump. And he goes, well, what would you do about all of this? And this was important to me. I told him I would declare bankruptcy. I would reaffirm the debt on the assets that I needed, just the minimum assets. But I'd get rid of the ranch. I'd get rid of the office. I'd get rid of all this stuff. I'd start all over again because this is a mess. You're starting out from 100 feet below ground. And he goes, well, I can't do that. And I said, well, you don't understand the process. I said, you don't actually have to do anything. You just have to make a decision. Other people do it. And he goes, well, I can't do that. And I said, well, it's really quite simple. It's a judge and it's administrator. You don't have to talk. He said, well, I can't do that. And I looked at him and I said, listen, are you dense? Because I know what these words mean, and I know I can talk pretty well. And he goes, it violates my principles. Really? How fascinating. You're kidding me, right? And he goes, no. He says, I promised these people I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it. And he said, if that's the best you have to offer, thanks for the trip. I'm glad you're here. He said, but what I'd really like you to do is tell me how to fix this. I go, Pat, once you're this deep, it's miserable to fix this. It's miserable. I didn't know anybody at my bank that ever survived workout. Nobody. Nobody. And I'm looking at Linda, and Linda says to me, just tell us what to do. Tell us the business side of what to do. I said, okay. Now keep in mind, I'm retired now. It's 1997. I don't have a job. I don't have a real job. And I'm pretty happy about that. And I really don't want a job either. And I said, all right, what we're going to do is we're going to make a three-legged stool. These are going to be our areas of responsibility, the three of us. Mine will be primarily marketing and finance. Pat, you'll be the presenter. And Linda, who at that time really didn't talk very much, she would be the sales gal at Pat's table. Hard to believe. And we did this, they did this, 40 weekends a year. 40 weekends a year. And the plan was for this to take 5 years, for this business to dig itself out of the hole that it was in. To their credit, they did it in 4. In 2001, May 21st, 2001, I became president of Parelli. We're at a board meeting. The woman who was president, who had been a Parelli field instructor, says, here's the secret. If you're the president of Parelli, you don't get to spend much time with your horse. And I'd want to go spend time with my horse. So Pat and Linda are very supportive. The 4 of us are chatting, and she looks at Pat and says, now that I'm no longer going to be the president of Parelli, who should be president? And Pat looks at me and says, Mark, you should do it. This is the spring of 2001. Keep in mind, I haven't worked for real for 5 years. And I go, and he says, Mark, you should do that. And I go, no, Pat. All the things I knew are stale. They're not really valuable anymore. And I don't want to do it. And he says, well, you know what? You're going through another divorce. And he said, you got your ranch in Florida. It's hot there. He says, you never spent more than 3 or 4 days here in Pagosa. Come and spend the summer, be the interim president, hire me a president, and then go back to being on the board of directors. Big hook. During that time, I got to understand more about the principles of a horseman. And they asked me a couple of questions. And I said, let me give you a note. You ask Pat about this note. This is in Pat's wallet today. And I said, what I want you to do, and it's my observation that most entrepreneurs think because they're good at one thing that they're good at everything. It's not true. It's not true. I've never seen it, so I can't believe it. So the third line is the most important for Pat and Linda. You focus on the things that only you can do. We'll develop a support system for all the rest. The 5th thing is actually the start of empowering your employees. If you ask that question, every time somebody asks you a question, if you ask that question, you'll be amazed at what your employees know. You'll be amazed. So that's the first rig after the pickup truck. Not quite Colorado yet. That's the rig in Colorado. That one blew up. How did we harvest intellectual property? When I looked at Pat and I looked at the principles, this is not a horse training program. This is intellectual property. It's actually human training is what it is. Horses are God's perfect creation. They don't need anything. They don't need us. Definitely don't need us. So what we did, and Pat can talk, but he has a difficult time writing stuff down. So what we would do is, Linda, do you remember cassette tape recorders, little bitty ones? So when they would travel from place to place, after they were done, Linda would turn it on, and she'd say, Pat, why did you do that? And he would talk about it. And she'd ask him another question, and he would talk about it. And during the talking, we came up with the first intellectual property products. Believe it or not, this is the first intellectual property product of Parelli. This is 200 pages. Good Lord. It's amazing where we've come from this. But that was the genesis of Parelli. That was Linda on a camera. These were the products that we made. How many of you remember VHS tapes? How many of you realize it's only 10 years ago? Isn't that amazing? It's just amazing how fast technology has changed. We have a DVD product, a levels product, and it's a foundational product. Self-paced, sequential, easy, simple, consistent. But what do you do? How do you do that? So when we built our office in Pagosa Springs, when we built our new office in Pagosa Springs, the one you saw there, an integral part of what we had to do, we harvest intellectual property every day. Pat and Linda's day starts 7 o'clock in the morning and they ride horses until 1. We'll film, they'll talk, or we'll bring them into the studio in the afternoon and they'll talk on a topic. We have 4 editing suites, a sound stage, complete media department, 4 editing suites, terabytes of intellectual property. That's their job. You saw the rope and leather products and those sort of things. That was possible because of the help that we got here in Colorado. We make all of that here in the United States and sell it all over the world. Now you would think to yourself, rope's rope. Not true. Not true. All of this made in Colorado. That fellow has been tying ropes for Pat Parelli for 26 years. When they used to drive the pickup truck, Pat had 2 marks on the dashboard. He would drive the truck at 60 miles an hour with the trailer on the back, holding the wheel with his knee, taking a piece of rope, pulling it out of the box through the sliding rear window of the pickup truck, into the cab, measure 3 times on the dashboard, cut it, and weave it while he's driving. You can't teach that passion for an idea to somebody. That's either in there or it's not. We're the largest Federal Express account in the Four Corners area. Depending on the day, we ship 1,000 packages. That's pretty amazing. But Mark, you haven't told me how you did it. You're just telling me the end result, but you didn't tell me the how. Would you like to know a bit of the how? How many of you are surfers? Oh, this is going to be a tough crowd. You all know what surfing is. You've watched surfing. And you know every wave crashes on the beach. If you ride the wave all the way to the beach, you crash. You know that, right? But how many people defend and extend their intellectual property because they have an investment and they want to make its useful life longer? So therefore, they miss the market trends that are happening around them and they fail. Here's an interesting side note. General Motors went bankrupt. Polaroid went bankrupt. Why? The finance people took over. They took value out of the products. They didn't put money into the experience. So I'm glad I wasn't the president of Polaroid, actually. So what was the first wave? Well, we had some products, but the next ones were the VHS tapes with blister packs, and they had a tape and a booklet and so forth. But how did we sell them? Just Pat running around in a pickup truck, that was our only distribution channel. So in the early 2000s, some people thought the internet was kind of a fad and it really wasn't going to blossom. Bill Gates was one of those guys, if you'll remember. We weren't. We said the internet had a tremendous future. So we were early adopters of the internet shopping experience, and we sold thousands of those things on the internet. Those were the days when you just had to put up a website. Even if it was wrong, even if it was bad, it was novel and people would do it. They would buy from you.